Just want to mention before we go on that I might look well put together right now, but that's because I decided to put some makeup on today because obviously I was going to do this video. But I am actually in pyjama bottoms, if you can see. So it isn't all as it looks. Oh, there's a child! Also, this child is doing potty training, so I'm going to have to try and keep her bum out of the shot. I don't know if that was in there. So I wanted to make this video because I feel like not a lot of people out there know that you have the choices to have a home birth, even when you've been told it's against medical advice. I do want to start by saying that this is my own personal experience. You must go with your gut and what you're being told by your medical professionals. A home birth isn't for everyone. It's a personal choice, so whether you give birth at home or in a hospital or in any other location, it needs to be somewhere where you feel comfortable and you feel safe. I had so many different women message me because they didn't know they were allowed one. They thought that to have one you had to be recommended to have one. They thought it might cost them money. It's mad how many people don't realise that your entire pregnancy, every single appointment, every single injection, every single blood test, every single how you give birth, it's all your choice. You can say no to one blood test and yes to another. I was scared. I had a needle phobia at the beginning of Elizabeth's pregnancy, and I refused blood tests for more than half the pregnancy, I think, because I just couldn't do it. Even when you're being told it's against medical advice, I feel like people don't know that means there's still a choice. So there is an element of being able to think about the risks, take the risks into consideration and decide whether it is still right or not for you. Medical professionals are following research, they have the training and they have the science behind what they are telling you. I think just what isn't always discussed is that every single mother, every single baby, every single pregnancy and every single labour is entirely different from another. So yes, science is important and we should listen to the concerns and the risks, but we don't always fit into those averages or statistics. I think what we also have to understand is that a consultant is trained in all of the scenarios and situations where a labour could go wrong, because they're there to fix a bad situation. At the end of the day, it is their career that will be brought into question if they were to advise a home birth and you were to be at home and something went wrong. So it's completely understandable from their perspective why they may want you to be in a hospital. Obviously, I'm also in the UK, so I did want to point out that having the NHS, we may have access to medical things. Basically, you just have to make sure that in your country you'd have access to the same care that we get here. Having a home birth is always something that I wanted to do, but it's also something I felt like I was never going to have. With Elizabeth, this one, I had planned for a home birth and actually believed it would happen right up until the last the last 2 weeks, I think. I was crushed. I decided I was going to be at home and that's how it was going to be. So when I couldn't, or when I went with the advice I was given, I was devastated and it kind of threw me off. I think I will make a separate video comparing my hospital and home birth. I'll go into a bit more detail with why I was advised against having a home birth with Elizabeth and what happened during the labour, because it was quite a traumatic event for me. But in short, she measured quite small and that's why I was advised to be in hospital. Looking back on it, I was in the right place for that particular birth, but I do also question whether there are certain events that might not have happened if I'd have been at home. But I've got no regrets, because there's no point me sitting here going, oh, I wish I'd done that, because what's it going to change? When I became pregnant with Penelope, I obviously went ahead with the same home birth plans, but it was a bit more subdued this time. I knew it's what I wanted, but I almost felt like it wasn't going to happen this time because of it all coming down crashing last time. However, because it was a second pregnancy, because it was a second pregnancy, I do think I had a lot more guts to question the choices that I had, and when the doctors were telling me that they wouldn't recommend certain things, I was asking the question why and going into a bit more depth about it, so I had all the information that I needed to make that decision. Clever girl! Yay! Big wee-wees on the potty! What a big girl! Penelope, just lay there 1 second. We did wee-wees on the potty! Yay! So, back to that. I was once again told by doctors they wouldn't recommend having a home birth. I had lost a lot of blood during the labour with Elizabeth, and Penelope was also measured on the small side, just as Elizabeth had done. I did agree to extra monitoring towards the end of pregnancy. This involved being hooked up to various monitors, checking the baby's heart rate, checking the baby's movements, the Doppler, which is the blood flow and oxygen supply to and from mum to the fetus. Wee-wees, we know, we all know. When you go for growth scans, there's like a plot graph thing that they do. So they scan the baby, they get these measurements. The computer then decides how heavy the baby weighs from all these measurements. So the head measurement and the stomach measurement and the legs and the arms. And then this weight goes on the chart, and if you're too high or too low, they decide that baby's too big or too small. But obviously this is based on an average, but I'm like below average in size, so in my mind I shouldn't be growing big babies. My partner's small, I'm small, my partner doesn't think he's small, but he is small. Our families in general are small, so I felt confident that Penelope would be a similar size to Elizabeth. Once I'd made my decision, I told my midwives, and I then collected my home birth box. I think collecting the box made me finally realise I was going to do it, but I also knew that this was my decision, so if I was to go into labour and then suddenly decide I didn't want to be at home, I didn't have to stay at home. It was always my choice. I practiced my hypnobirthing as I've done with Elizabeth's pregnancy. I don't actually think I would have coped with labour had I not done hypnobirthing the first time or even the second time. It really helped me. It's amazing. I'd tell everyone about it if I could. I spent the last few months collecting old sheets from family members. My lovely grandma brought around tons of old sheets that she can keep in the loft or something somewhere. So these were sheets that we could use for any leakages, and then we could just chuck them away. So that was brilliant. We also practiced blowing up the birthing pool, so that was so that we knew how long it was going to take to blow up, how long it was going to take to fill. We didn't fill it full, we just filled like a third, so we knew it would take 3 times that. 3 maths, quick maths. And then it was just a case of waiting. So I hoped I wouldn't be kept waiting, as anyone does when they're expecting a baby. And luckily, both came early. Elizabeth came day before her due date, and I went into labour with Penelope 5 days before her due date. At first, I'll be honest, I didn't want to alarm anyone, so I was feeling all these dull period-like type contractions, and I kind of just ignored them. But after a little while, I thought, I should maybe tell my mum, because I was having my mum and Brandon at the birth. She only lives around the corner, so it wasn't an issue. But I just messaged my mum, and I was just like, don't want to alarm you, just letting you know I'm feeling these period type pains. I don't think it's labour yet. It's probably just Braxton Hicks or whatever. And then as mums do, she was like, right, I'll be round in 5. So my mum got there about 9 PM on the night. We then watched Michael McIntyre and Russell Howard. Both I've seen live and would recommend both. 10 out of 10. It got to about midnight, and the contractions, they were definitely contractions by this point, but they were still quite dull. They were closer together, but they weren't, didn't feel debilitated at all. I spent a good hour or 2 of that time cleaning around the house, making it smell nice. I wanted it nice for the midwives. So midnight we went to bed, and 1:30 is when I decided I need to get up again. I didn't really sleep. I think Brandon pretty much just about drifted off by the time I then got him back up again. The contractions were much more intense, to the point where they were making me wince now, and obviously lying on your back isn't a very good position for you to be in. Gravity helps. And I decided I wanted to spend my time in the bathroom. So I'd known this all the way through my pregnancy, that I wanted to spend as much time as I could sitting on my birthing ball in the bathroom. I'd read lots of stories of women who had had home births and used the bathroom as their main progressor. Because a bathroom is usually quite a private area, it's the place where you feel relaxed and calm, and it allows your body to kind of let go and allow baby to move down. Naturally, it's just where you feel relaxed. I also think subconsciously I wanted to be in the bathroom because I knew if my water's broken there, it would be far easier to clean up. I asked Brandon to bring in some candles, so it was just me in the dark in like flickering orange light. It was lovely, and I just sat there and bounced on my birthing ball. So by the time my first midwife arrived, it was just after 3, so that was an hour and a half after we'd all got out of bed again. I'd been in the bathroom that whole time, and the contractions were much more intense. Can you not? Because you're going to knock the laptop over. Step over. Good girl. Step over. When the first midwife arrived, she asked if I wanted her to check my progress, so that was checking how much I was dilated. I do think I probably should have declined this looking back on it, but again, no regret. But when she told me that I was only 4 centimetres, I was a bit bummed out, I'm not gonna lie. So she got me laid on the sofa. We put a big plastic sheet over the sofa, and then on top of the plastic sheet was loads of our old bedding sheets that I said that we collected. And my waters broke. I think they were definitely ready to come out. I've been feeling like this slight urge to push for quite a while. So I think that's what that was. During the time I'd been in the bathroom, my mum and Brandon had put the pool up, so it was blown up, all the water was in there, and it was like 1 or 2 degrees hotter than what it needed to be so that it could then cool down, ready for me to get in. It needs to be kept at a certain temperature, and that's the temperature that's in the womb, so the baby comes out into the same temperature. Just gives them an easier transition into the world, I suppose. I don't know why I'm doing this, because babies don't really come out like that, but there we go. But I then went to get in the pool, and this was sort of 10 minutes after the first midwife had arrived and my second midwife arrived. I then very quickly felt the urge to push. So this is why I feel like I wish I'd not just heard that I was 4 centimetres, because I immediately in my head was like, why do I need to push? Because I can't push if I'm 4 centimetres. But I think what happened is I went from 4 to 10 as my waters came out, and it was my waters that were kind of holding that back from happening. So yeah, I kind of had a moment where I was petrified, because I was like, I can't do this. I'm at home, I'm 4 centimetres and I need to push, and I can't push because I'm 4 centimetres and I need to be 10 centimetres to push. That all went through my head in like 1 second flat, but it was fine. And I felt the head drop, and I was like, oh hell, it's about to happen. But that adrenaline of being at home, in my own living room, in the pool, was amazing. It was scary. I had a moment of being really scared, but it was amazing. And within 20 minutes of my first midwife arriving, Penelope was here. It really was perfect. Once all the bits and pieces have been done, like checking baby over and checking me and a bit of stitching, I had to have 1 or 2 stitches, nothing major. Again, I was stitched up on my sofa, and can I just say, once we'd cleared everything up, there wasn't even a drop. So like my waters broke and I was stitched up on my sofa. There was not even, there was not even a singular mark from any of that. There is no way to describe that feeling once everything's done and you get to go upstairs and go to bed with your baby. It was amazing. And we were quite lucky because it happened at night. Elizabeth managed to sleep through the entire thing and then came down in the morning to her baby sister. It was just perfect.